gonna go ahead and kick us off.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name is Janae Bennett, and I'm with Dallas Pets Alive. I am the foster director here, and we are a DFW rescue. We're foster based, so we don't have a kennel or a shelter or anything like that. We rely on foster homes. We started in 2012, and we were primarily a dog rescue for several years. And then somewhere along the way, someone convinced someone to let them bring in a mom and kittens. And then the next thing you know, our numbers what year is this? Our numbers the last 3 or 4 years, we have had more cat intakes and more cat adoptions than dogs. And so we knew that we needed to have a resource to support our cat fosters. And that's how we got connected with Molly here. And we put on these quarterly calls to support our fosters, support the community, and get more people wanting to rescue cats and get that support. So we are so glad that you're here, and we're so thankful for Molly.
Yeah, we're really, really appreciative of what you guys are doing. And we have several of our other wonderful Dallas area rescues on the call today too. So that's great. And we'll be recording it and I'll put it up on my YouTube channel. So afterwards, feel free to share that with all of your fosters and adopters and anybody who's dealing with a scared cat, which we will talk about. All right, I'm gonna jump right in here, and let's go ahead and get started. All right. So we are talking about scared cats tonight. And this is a new time for us. Normally we do weekends. And let me see here. I'm also going to let's see if I can pin myself to the top. Am I pinned to your little sidebars over there where you can see me?
I see you.
Okay, good. Because I will have some props for you today. All right, so let's get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a certified feline training and behavior specialist, and I got that. What that basically means is that I'm a cat shrink, right? I do psych evals on cats in shelters. I work with owners that are having issues with their cats. And I spent an awful lot of time in a lot of big shelters in this country and have seen that shelter euthanasia is still the #1 cause of death in cats in the United States. And so I started this nonprofit, Cat Behavior Solutions. And then I wanted to reach more people. So I started Cat Talk Radio, and we now publish a podcast a week of different cat care and behavior issue things. So be sure to share that with anybody you know that has cats, likes cats, interested in getting a cat, anything like that, because that's what that's for. Is I've amassed a huge amount of resources that are kind of do-it-yourself cat help so that everybody's got access to quality information all the time. So what we're going to talk about tonight for our little scared cats is what are signs that you might be dealing with a scared cat? What makes that cat scared? And I'm going to give you 18 things that you can do to make that cat feel more comfortable. All right, let's start with what cats are we talking about here? Because I wanted to make this presentation really be valuable to a variety of audiences, right? So biggest audience, I think, are fosters, right? People that are fostering cats from the shelter that are feeling out of sorts in a shelter setting. And so they have them in a foster home. Maybe it's a recently adopted cat. Or scared cats that are in your adopters' homes. Could be scared cat in your own home, right? Certainly cats in the shelter. Those we're going to be talking about today. Really any scared cat. And if I forget to include one of those demographics in there, then you guys tell me. And if you are not muted, go ahead and mute yourself so we're not hearing your background noise too. And at the end, if you, or anytime in between, you want to ask a question, unmute and chime in and ask away. So what are some signs that your cat you're dealing with is scared? First of all, any change in normal behavior, right? Cats are very predictable in their routines and their personalities. If you have an unpredictable cat, something is wrong. Aggression is one of the first signs of scared cat behavior. In a shelter, we see what we call defensive aggression. They're very scared about being in that shelter setting, and they don't know anybody, and they're, hands coming at them and things like that. And so they may react with a bite, swatting, hissing, that kind of thing. In a home, if the cat is scared, you'll see signs of aggression. So, and hissing, hissing is very much a sign of fear in a cat. So aggression, if the cat's reacting aggressively, we may be dealing with some frightened behavior. Litter box avoidance, especially if the litter box is, if they're scared, they might be afraid to leave a comfortable space to go use the litter box. They might be afraid of something, another cat, something they're afraid of that might ambush them or get them on the way to the litter box. Or if your litter box is in a room, like a laundry room with a noisy washing machine, dryer, that kind of thing, they might be afraid of the appliances or the noises or something in the surrounding area that the litter box is. Another thing I wanted to go back and mention about changes in normal behavior. If your cat's normally, pretty active and awake most of the time of the day, but all of a sudden you realize that they're sleeping a lot, it might be an underlying medical issue, but it also might be feigning sleep. We see this a lot in a shelter setting. It's a learned behavior where the cats learn that if they pretend like they're asleep, people will leave them alone. And so make sure that if your cat is pretending to be asleep, and you can tell the difference, right? They're not fully asleep. They're kind of peeking at you and trying to be real still and avoiding you. Of course, running away from you, others, hiding is a big one. Our scared cats like to hide and come out at night after everybody's gone to bed. Recoiling. Especially, hands coming at them to pet them, and they're like, and in the shelter, they get as little as they can in the back of their kennel, that kind of thing. Body language signs that we see. All right. Shedding is a big one to show a sign of a cat. A lot of times in shelters, if a cat is really scared and it's shedding and you've got a potential adopter and, they're holding the cat or you're holding the cat and they notice, like in this picture, all this hair that's happening, then they go, I don't want a cat that sheds that much. And that can be a problem. I've got some background noise here. I'm going to take a second and mute. There we go. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Slinking and cowering, of course, when they walk real low to the ground and their heads are low and their tails are low and they're kind of slinking around. If they're in a loaf position, like this guy is here in this picture as an example, a loaf position centered over their legs means that they're ready to run. They are coiled to spring load to run, as opposed to laying on their side with their legs straight out and being very relaxed. Dilated eyes, of course, as you can see, this little guy in this picture's got huge black pupils. That happens as a natural reaction to things that they're afraid of. Tail low and head low. I had probably one of the saddest behavior consultations this afternoon I've ever seen, and it was a litter box issue, and it turned out it wasn't behavior. This cat was clearly in a lot of discomfort, physical discomfort. So when cats are in physical discomfort and emotional discomfort, they display the head low, tail low body language. So the tail is either on a parallel with their back or lower, and their head, same thing. Head is held low. And you can really test this. If the cat is kind of unsure in their environment, but they're comfortable with you, when they walk by you, the tail will spring up. And then as soon as they pass you, the tail will go back down. If they walk by another cat they like, tail goes up. And then as they walk away, you'll see the tail going down. That head and tail both should be held high in confidence. And if not, that's something to watch for signs of fear. And of course, the ears to the side. You can see our example of this guy over here. His ears are out to the side. They're not totally out and flat and back like some very stressed cats. You know, they're tense. You can tell that they're just tensely held out there, because when a cat gets scared, its face muscles kind of go, ooh, like it's grimacing, and that causes those ears to turn out some. You know, the other thing that we notice is that these body languages, this stress level, it changes throughout the day. It can change from hour to hour. So it's real important that you learn these body language signs of stress. I produced what we call the cat stress score chart to use in shelters, and scared cats look a lot like that. And I'm going to show you what that looks like more closely. So in the body, loaf position, head is low, eyes are dilated, those ears are tense out to the side, whiskers are probably back, their tail is wrapped. They could be, once you are reaching for them and trying to interact with them, they very often can react with defensive aggression if they are pushed beyond that behavior threshold. That's what that can look like there. They will react defensively when a cat is scared. So it's need to be very careful in approaching and interacting with a scared cat. And when do they get scared? They could get scared anytime. It could be sudden, or it could be something that's building up over time. It may not be as a parent. It may be something, you know, something that happens suddenly, or this can be a compounding, what we call stress layering, stress stacking situation for the cat. So let's start talking about what makes a cat scared. Why are they scared? First of all, conditioning. So there's a social development period for all cats, and it's very narrow, very short, and happens when they're very young. It's between 3 and 7 weeks of age. And Jerry and I were talking before everybody got on about some kittens that she trapped that were feral kittens, where one of them is progressing slower than the others. And the one that she trapped 2 weeks earlier, it was 6 weeks of age versus 8, is making more progress. And that's because anything they're not exposed to in that window, they're a little leery of later on, and they really do need to learn through conditioning not to be afraid of those things. We see this a lot when kittens are fostered in homes like with it's just a single woman, and nobody comes over, and the cats don't get exposed to a variety of people and a variety of environments. So what happens in that very young social development period is crucial to what happens later in life. The other thing is genetic memory. There is absolutely something for kittens that are born of feral parents and feral grandparents and a lineage of feral cats that have had no experience with humans versus kittens that have been born from maybe an abandoned cat that was owned at one time but is now outside, or a pet. Big difference. So conditioning, about 30% actually of the cat's genetics comes from their history. Traumas, gosh, this could be neglect or abuse. Anytime a cat is neglected, we see this a lot in our hoarding cases, or of course, there's been some trauma in that cat's life, whether that be emotional or physical, that can stay with them for a very, very long time. Cats have very long memories, especially when compared to dogs. And so things that happen to them, they get a lot of PTSD over for a long period of time. Anything unusual, right? We talked about a little bit about this, changes in routine, when things become unpredictable, right? In this visual case here, boxes. My stuff is being boxed up. Who moved my cheese? Things are not like they normally are. Changes in routine in the household. So why do cats like predictability? It's because they feel like they're in control of their environment when things happen at predictable times of the day, every day, day in and day out. We had a situation here the other night that was very funny. I let Pico, we spend a lot of time in the evenings outside on our portal. We'll eat out there and watch a movie and that kind of thing. And I put Pico in his harness and a very long lead, and he can be out there with us. So I heard him kind of jingling. I just assumed he was chasing a mouse and playing with the mouse, didn't think anything of it. And this jingling then continued for about 20 minutes. And I finally went over to see what he was doing. And he had a little snake. And it wasn't a big snake, but it was a little snake. And that snake was jumping at him. And it was a bull snake or a king snake. It wasn't anything venomous that I had to worry about. But the snake, open mouth, was striking him, and he would jump back, and then he'd go into the snake and jump back. So, we moved the snake and took him inside and that kind of thing. He has been jumpy for a week. He'll go outside now and be sniffing on something. And if I reach down to touch him and he jumps out of his skin. And he wasn't like that before the snake experience. And it'll pass. That's not a trauma that will stay with him forever. But even something simple like that can make them unusually scared and jumpy when they would normally be very confident. Loud noises. This is a real thing for cats. Cats like it when it's quiet. They like calm and quiet. And I had a cat we had sadly in the shelter that was returned because it was returned for aggression, was on a bite quarantine because it had bit the owner, because when the baby started crying and the woman went to go pick up the baby, the cat would run and attack her leg and bite. And the cat was very triggered by this loud noise. Fireworks, things like that. Anything of loud noises can set a cat off. Any kind of scolding or punishment, right? The yelling, the spraying, shaking of cans. 99% of the time, your cat is doing what's considered natural behavior. And so if we scold them for natural behavior, they don't understand what is going on. They only then think that we have become hugely unpredictable. normally we're nice and quiet and fun to get along with, but then all of a sudden in their mind, we go crazy and start yelling at them. And they're like, what did I do? They don't understand that getting on the counter is a bad thing because they're designed to climb. All right. So any kind of scolding or punishment will make a cat afraid, and usually of you. So I don't recommend that you do it. We don't use negative punishment at any time for a cat. Of course, predators, dogs, things flying overhead, and this could be hands coming at them. This is why when we teach people to interact with cats in a way that's not threatening, it's never go over the head and pet on top of the head. It's always come up low and go here with them, not over. That's a natural reaction for them. They have a lot of predators in the sky that make them flinch when things come overhead. So, we have a lot of cases where cats are in foster homes and cats are in adoptive homes where there are dogs, and they see the dogs as predators, and then they begin to develop some behavior issues because they're living in fear in their own home of the dog that they think is going to eat them. And of course, territory invaders, right? Now, this can look like this, another cat, a new cat that's been brought into the household can be viewed as a territory invader and make a cat afraid of its now unpredictable environment with competition. It can also look like this. This was a photo that I took from a cat consultation. You can see the piddle pads everywhere. Of course, they're cats. I was out there for a urination issue. The cats were urinating all along this back wall. And I said, well, are there other cats out there? And they go, yeah, our neighbor cat comes over every now and then. And I turned around and looked, and sure enough, there he is sitting right there. And these guys in the house see that as a potential territory invader. So not only are they territory marking along the perimeter where they're seeing the cat, but there's inner cat fighting because they're afraid that this cat's going to get in. They don't know that this cat can't get in. They're afraid that this cat's going to get in and take their stuff and take over their territory. So that's a real issue. Body language makes a cat scared. Our body language can be making our cats scared. Anytime that they're staring without blinking with a cat, they take that on as a confrontation, because that's what they do to one another when they're about to have a fight. They stare. That head goes low again, and they stare and they don't blink. If you're working with cats in a shelter, or you are fostering cats and they're hiding from you and they're staring, you've seen it. They don't blink. They can go an hour and not blink, and they're watching you intently. So we always say, don't stare at your cat like that. Slow blink to them so they know that you are soft and approachable and someone who can be trusted. Strange cat noises. Oh my gosh. If you are watching cat videos on your phone, either don't do it in front of your cat, or turn the sound way, way, way down where only you can hear it. Because when you get those cat videos that have cats shrieking and making noises of fear, your cat will also respond that way and become very afraid. They pick up on that in the shelter. If we exhibit body language of fear, then they go, oh no, what, there's something I'm supposed to be afraid of. If they see it in other cats, they react the same way. Uh-oh, there's something I'm supposed to be afraid of. Unpredictability, we've talked about, but in this case, I mean in our own body language, right? Yelling and arguments. If you have a home that's normally very calm and quiet, and all of a sudden a big argument breaks out, that's not normal. That's not part of the normal routine. That cat is going to be very, very scared with what's going on. Other cats' body language. If another cat in the household or a cat outside starts displaying body language that is not that is challenging, I should say. So again, piloerection is what we call when the cat takes that Halloween cat pose, where the hair's raised on its back and the tail gets poofy and the ears go back just like this little guy, and they turn sideways to make themselves look bigger. That will cause your cat to freak out. Cats staring at one another, cats stalking one another. And again, if they see in another cat, the head low, tail is swished or bushed up, they're going to go, oh no, what am I supposed to be afraid of? So body language is a very important thing. Unpleasant or strong odors can cause your cat to be fearful. These would be things like vinegar, onions, gasoline, citrus. Cats hate the smell of citrus. Please stop using citrus cleaners around your house. Water of any kind. Water, like make me take a bath kind of water. It's not, there are some breeds of cats that are more adaptable to water, but for the most part, cats don't like baths, and they will become very, very afraid if you try to put them in a vat of water. They're very good at cleaning themselves, so try not to have to do that. And water that looks like this, spraying water, that just scares them. They're like, what the heck? I'm afraid of water. Why are you squirting me? They do not understand that. Loss of control. This is a huge one, because when a cat, control of its environment is one of the 10 essential needs of cats. And I mean essential, up there with food and water and enough space and things like that. Control is huge. So of course, when we put them in a shelter, what are we doing? We're stripping them of all control. They're in a tiny confined space. They don't get to control anything, where they go, what they do, how they interact, any of that. When a cat has control, it's not afraid, right? They need confidence. They need courage. It's all that boldness, fearlessness. All of that comes with a sense of control. Also, in a shelter situation and any situations where we put a cat where it can't perform its natural behaviors, it's going to feel like it has lost control of the situation. And any kind of pain or illness, of course, that also can cause a cat to be afraid, right? I'm sick, I'm vulnerable, I don't feel good, so I'm going to be afraid of everything because I don't feel good. And again, that goes back to body language, watching the cat's body language to make sure that there are no underlying medical issues. Cucumbers, right? If you Google what's the things that cats are afraid of, it'll say cucumbers. And we've all seen these silly videos of cats jumping when the owner puts the cucumber behind them when they're eating. And the common theory is, well, the cat thinks it's a snake, which I think is ridiculous because that cucumber doesn't look like a snake, right? I think it's because it's a strange thing they've probably never seen before, all of a sudden appears while they're eating. So to test this theory, when Pico was probably about 4 months old, he was eating and I put a cucumber down behind him. And he finished, no, he didn't really finish. He just stopped eating and he glanced around and he was like, huh, what's that? Went over and smelled it and went right back to eating. And, he was like, meh, I don't have anything to be afraid of. So I thought, well, I wanted to get that on videotape to show you guys, to debunk this cucumber myth. So I did it again about 2 weeks ago in preparation of this webinar, and I got a whole different reaction. Poor little guy. I scared the bejeebies out of him. And I didn't mean to. And I never would have done this if I had thought that he was going to react any differently than he did when he was 4 months old, and he's 3 now. And so he was so scared of this thing, and of course, reaching out to touch it to see if it's going to move. So yeah, cucumbers we can probably add to the list as things that they're afraid of. And I'm sorry, Pico. All right, let's dive into the 18 things that I have accumulated that you can do to fix your scared cat being fearful of things. First of all, and these are all things, whether your cat's been scared a short time or this is accumulative over a lifetime, like maybe their social development period, right? If they've been scared their whole lives, all of this stuff is going to work. It's just going to take longer than the cat that's been scared a short amount of time. So we've got to be patient, right? We got to really be patient with the cat. We got to have a strategic, caring approach to what we're doing about their fear. All right. And it depends on the specific situation as to what you're going to use from this list, right? And we'll have time at the end if you have a scared cat story you want to share, and we can talk about it, and I can help you get there. So respect the cat's feelings. It's afraid, even though you might think that, don't be silly, we're not going to hurt you, don't do nothing because you're not empathetic for what that cat is going through, right? It's perfectly fine to be empathetic for this cat's afraid, and I'm really sorry you're feeling fear. But at the same time, we need to gradually challenge that fear in a way that doesn't violate their behavior threshold so that they can become more comfortable. So for instance, if we are fostering a cat and I say, respect that cat's feelings, have empathy for the fact that it's scared, and you think, okay, well, I'm just going to let it hide under the bed all the time. That's not what I'm saying, right? Not what I'm saying at all, because we do have to teach them that we and their environment can be trusted and that they do have control so that they gain confidence enough to come out and interact with us. Always calm and soothe the cat. And there's a couple things that work real well with that. I mean, a high-pitched voice that will help calm your cat. Cats they hear at higher decibels than we do, which is why they say that they're drawn to women more than men, because women typically have higher voices than men, and the cats find that comforting. So when you hear all of us in the shelter or talking to our cats going, oh, I'm so sorry, we're doing our little baby cat voice, it's not stupid. It actually works. Another thing that really works is Reiki. So I went back and got my Reiki Master Teacher certification and have been teaching some Reiki Level 1 for cats in shelters classes. And it goes a long, long way to help these cats feel calm in a strange environment. So that might be something that you want to look into and expand your knowledge on. How can you use some energy healing, T-touch, all of those things are great to help the cats. Recognize the cat's triggers and avoid them. So if we know that the cat is afraid when we reach over their head to pet them, and we know that because they recoil or their eyes dilate, or one of the things that we talked about in the signs, then don't do it, right? Now, again, to a point, there will be some things I tell you to do that, we know that things coming at them scare them, but as long as there's something good attached to that, then that's a good thing. But pay attention to your cat's body language and the situational evidence about why it's scared. Is it scared at different times of the day? Is it scared in one room of the house versus another room of the house? Is it scared of a particular person because it's never seen that kind of person before? What exactly seems to be triggering more fear than other things? could just be plain environmental. It's been thrown into a shelter and, it's scared, as most all cats are in a shelter setting. Obviously, reduce stress and anxiety in the environment. In any way that you are interacting with them, don't do things that are stressful and cause anxiety in the cat. All right. Provide ample resources for all the cats, not just your scared cat, but all the cats in the home. Right. That's very, very important. And I love this picture because I always show this picture when I say, this is what a sanctuary room for a new cat should look like. And every one of them should have their own room that looks like this. That would be a wonderful place to live. And control. We talked a lot about how loss of control makes a cat feel insecure. So what you can do about that is you give them choices. It's very important that a cat have choices. Prey playing with them. Allowing them, and prey playing is what we do when we have a wand toy with a little toy on the end, when we are simulating that hunting experience and allowing them to catch it, allowing them to engage and catch it and bite it, that gives them a lot of sense of control. Opportunities to mark their territory. Very, very, very important for a cat to have a sense of control. And that includes things like scratching posts. So when they scratch, they have little scent glands between their toes, and they're actually leaving a territorial marker gesture. Strategically place those around the home next to doors and windows. So if they see another cat outside, they can say, this is my territory right here inside this door. Place it outside of your foster rooms so that as they're feeling out of control because now there's a new group of cats behind that door they can't get to, put a scratching post outside that door. It's an excellent way for them to be able to exhibit natural behaviors in a stressful situation. Make sure that your home is got a lot of routine, especially surrounding the cat care things. If you can't be there to feed a meal, get a food timer so that their meals are coming at regular basis. Choose your battles with them, getting up on the counter. Come on, it's a cat. It likes to be on the counter. As long as it's not standing in your food while you're trying to make it, come to some sort of compromise on what the cat can and can't do. Give it control over its space. And probably one of the best things you can do to make a cat feel in control is to clicker train it. They love positive reinforcement. And when you clicker train, they actually begin to feel like they're controlling you, right? So that's a great thing you can do for them. Space. So, when I went back to school for my certifications, one of the things they told us was that cats require a great deal of space. If we were to properly care for a cat, every cat would have a 10-bedroom home. And I add on top of that, and unlimited access to the outside to go roam. So, obviously most of us can't provide that for our cats. But space is very important. They don't like overcrowding. They like to have room to move around and explore. So if you have a tiny apartment, maybe 8 cats is too many. And places to hide. It's very important that we give them a secure place to go hide when they feel like they need to. That's super important. An ability to get up high spaces. Cats have got to be able to get up out of our reach. In fact, I don't know if you can see it, but there's Pico above that window on his bed. He just climbed up from his little scratcher to those steps and got up there because he just ate dinner right before we started tonight. And when he doesn't want to be messed with and he's like, I'm going to go take a nap, he crawls up there and knows that we can't touch him. And that's good. Cats need to have a place where they can get up high. Climbing is natural and it gives them a place of surveillance. That's really important for cats in fulfilling their natural behaviors. They've got to have surveillance towers. Check your own emotions in this equation when you're dealing with a scared cat, right? You need to remain calm. They are very sensitive to our emotions, and they feed off of our emotions. Like I was saying earlier, in a shelter setting, if we're scared, they get scared because they go, uh-oh, we should all be scared. And they get very worried. So if we're stressed and we're displaying scared emotions ourselves, they're going to pick up on that. So it's very important that we stay calm. And of course, routine. We talked about that. Things need to happen in a specified sequence on time. And if you're going to introduce something new, it needs to be introduced very slowly and gradually so that the cat gets used to it. Otherwise, that will be out of the routine. And block the view to the outside. A lot of cats are very afraid of what they're seeing or what they think they might see outside your doors and windows. So when you have a scared cat, it is important they have space, but not the perception of space like I've got to be able to see out all the doors and windows. Cover those doors and windows with frosted film. This is what I recommend using, at least until the cat gains its sense of control back. Because when they have too much territory to protect, then that actually can make them more fearful. So definitely in the beginning, we want to make sure they have space, but we want to make sure they have their own space and not too much and not too little. Music is very calming for cats. Classical music, classical piano music in particular, not, big rowdy music, but classical piano music is the most calming for cats. There are several companies that make music. iCalm is the one that I use. They go in and scientifically modulate that music so that it removes stressful tones and things for cats. So iCalm has a fantastic track. You can download that music, play it when you're not at home. If you have a stress foster and they're in a foster room, play it all the time. You can go to YouTube and Google cat TV, and there'll be several of those that have calming, relaxing music. Drugs help, and I mean everything from over-the-counter type pheromone plugins. They're not going to fix the problem. They're not going to make the cat magically confident just because you put a plug-in in there, but they help. They take the edge off. And then there's lots of other medications that your veterinarian can discuss with you. There's gabapentin. There's a form of Prozac for cats. Those types of things are good in moderation while you're doing everything else to try to make that cat realize that it can trust its environment. And I gotta say too that I developed a flyer for shelters to use called 333 that talks about how long it takes for a cat to actually acclimate and get settled in and trust its new environment. And this is like a cat coming into a new home. It takes 3 days just to get out of shock. It takes 3 weeks for the cat to be able to learn the routines of the house. And it takes 3 months for that cat to fully settle in. So, give them some patience and time. And while they're in that settling down period, maybe some prescription drugs will help. Certainly talk to your veterinarian about that. Now, there are some methods, some behavior methods, animal behavior methods that we use. There is what's called the extinction method. And what that means, so like in people, if you are like constantly exposed to that fear stimulus over and over and over again, repeatedly for a prolonged period of time, without any negative consequences happening, then your fear response eventually diminishes. One of the examples is like you have a fear of flying, but you make yourself go fly lots of different flights. And you realize that after about the 50th or the 150th flight, nothing's happened and we haven't had a crash, we haven't ran into any bad turbulence, then your fear of flying begins to diminish. Well, if we do this in cats, it's the same as flooding, right? So eventually a cat may learn that its environment isn't harmful just because no harm comes to it when it's exposed to that. That will eventually work. It absolutely works. So for instance, if you've got a scared cat that you're fostering and it's hiding under the bed, you know, maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, if you keep going in and feeding them and talking to them and being calm and playing music and leaving great stuff and treats and stuff like that, it might decide to come out and feel like it's safe enough to allow you to get close to it. So that works. It's called the extinction method. Systematic desensitization. So there's two ways we do this. One, there are sound CDs. So these are great. These have noises, things that pets are normally afraid of: fireworks, gunfire, thunder, right? That kind of thing. Transportation noises, trains, cars, buses, household noises, lawnmowers, vacuum cleaners, children, baby crying, that kind of thing. And you play this at a very low level and then increase it. So this is called systematic desensitization. We're desensitizing the cat to what it's afraid of. So in our shelter setting, when we use, there's a new program out, Feline Right at Home. You can go to felinerightAtHome.com and check that out. So we use this, and we use this with touch. So we're getting the cat to do something, and then we're touching them, pairing that with a good stimulus that helps them to become less fearful. We'll talk more about that in a second. So there's counter conditioning. The cat has been conditioned for whatever reason, whether that's young conditioning or whether that's trauma, not to trust you. So one of the things we do is we like to use these back scratchers, and we put the magic cat crack on the back of them. This is a treat made by Vitacraft called Lick and Lap snack, or Lick and Lap crack, as I call it. And it's a squeeze treat. You can see it in the photo here. I'm using it with this feral kitten. This was a kitten that was trapped and brought in from the streets, have never had any socialization from people whatsoever, right? So we're exposing him to the fear stimulus, me, and my hand being close, with something positive. So I smear it on his nose if he doesn't want to engage in it, if he's too scared to, and then he goes, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So the more he gets that treat with me there, then the more he begins to learn, oh, good things happen when she comes around, and then he can trust me. So counter conditioning is pairing that fear stimulus, which is usually us or the environment, with something wonderful. So I recommend, if you're dealing with a cat in a shelter or in a foster home, get these scratchers. Happy to send you the link. You can email me, molly@catbehaviorsolutions.org, and I'll send you the link to these things. They're very inexpensive and handy when you're dealing with a cat that is not comfortable. And then the next step that we do is touch desensitization. So once they've been eating this wonderful treat off the back, I'm shortening the scratcher every time I go in, to the point that I can my finger is now up here, and I can stroke the side of the face while it's eating the treat. And here's an example of what that looks like. This is a feral cat from the community. See, he smelled it and went, oh, wow, that sounds awesome. That smells awesome and good. So he liked it. Like, great. So I shorten it. You can see I've shortened it. He's like, backs away because hand is closer. But then he goes, but that treat is so good. I'm gonna risk the hand just to get to that treat. And again, I've gotten closer. And even though he's uncomfortable with it, I'm now able to stroke the side of his face. The more I do that, the more comfortable he's going to get with touch. So now every time I go in with that treat, I'm going to be stroking longer. And then you notice when he finishes the treat, he begins to recoil. Well, I'm going to be stroking a little bit longer in that recoil and then lengthen that every time. This is an excellent technique for cats, those two combined, for cats that are scared. And last but not least, pick up your cucumbers, right? Don't do it. I did to Pico. That wasn't nice. So pick up your cucumbers. Now, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you've got going on in scared or shy cats, and that we can maybe help you with. Just unmute yourselves and jump in. And I'm going to also, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to put the link to that CD in the chat box. Anybody got anything? What do we got?
So I have a question. Can you hear me? So I have two kittens that are about 5 months old, and I've had them for 5 weeks. And they're classic scaredy cats. They came off the street. They were rescue cats. And we had them in just one room. And they were there probably for 4 weeks, and they were really starting to come good. What we did is we took it in turns sleeping in the room with them just so they got used to us being around. And they have a breakfast, they have dinner, and then at about maybe 9 o'clock, we're going with some roast chicken and feed them out of our hands. And that kind of got us close. But I like your thing better because they lick it and you can touch them. Anyway, it's a sunny room. They would go into their basket and slowly you can inch up and start patting them. One's more scared than the other, but it was really good. But now I've just had to change the room because my daughter came back, and I feel like we've gone back to square one.
Yeah, you have, because it's different. And thank you for joining.
3 days.
And sadly, Lick and Lap is not distributed in Australia, where you are tuning in today. I wish it was, but we actually had a shelter apply for our behavior program that's in Australia, and the product's not distributed there. But hopefully you'll find something that's similar, that's, that just they're willing to come out of their comfort zone to take that chance to eat. So the other thing I recommend is not to feed dry food. I didn't really cover this today, but don't feed dry food where they can just nibble all day long. Feed them a lot of small meals so that you have multiple opportunities to bond with them. Not only does that give you increased opportunities to bond with them, but it's more natural to the species because they'll eat 10 to 20 small meals a day in the wild. So when we're only feeding them 2 or 3 times a day, it's really not enough. And we can get food timers for when we can't be there and that sort of thing. And, when you put the food down, kind of linger there and see if they'll come eat it while you're nearby. And like you said, feeding them treats, whether it's deli turkey or whatever they love, as many times as you can do that. Deli turkey's good because it doesn't have a lot of calories and it's good for them, and they need that tryptophan. And so, 18 times a day, if you've got time to go in and do that, they will. eventually learn to trust you. They might always be shy around strangers just because if they came off the streets, they've, you know, again, that's about 30% of their personality makeup. So there's some of that you can't change, you know.
Okay. Then the last question is, and I think I know the answer, it's not a good idea to separate them. One's more scared than the other.
No, definitely not a good idea to separate them, especially if one is more scared than the other, because they do learn from one another. They learn from watching what the other one does, and they go, oh, okay, well, that one, you know, enjoyed that, and that's good. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank
you. Sure. Lucy, what do you got for us?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm in Montreal, Canada, and the two cats in the picture are the two rock stars that both are pretty nervous guys. Mo, the black and white one, is 11, and Doug, the striped one, is 7. And Doug's a nervous wreck, and Mo's his support animal. Now, my issue is I've had these guys a little over a year, and they're feeling a lot better, actually. You'd sneeze and Doug would just jump out of his skin. Now he's not scared of sneezes or toilet flushing, but I do have to go away for a course. And what I'm worried about is because Mo is diabetic, he's in remission, but he does need to eat in front of people. And I think because I live alone, they have quiet, which is nice for calming. But if I'm sort of torn, because if I have a pet sitter come in, I'm worried they won't eat or have enough attention. And I know of a pet sitter that boards them in her home as well in a separate bedroom. I'm not sure what the safest thing to do is. I sort of think they might almost be safer with their medical condition being with this person who knows how to give injections, and at least there's somebody there all the time. You know, they're not sleeping alone. They can get fed. I'm just wondering what's the best thing to do. I know it's preferred to have a pet sitter, but I'd be afraid they wouldn't eat, and they have to eat separately because one eats diabetic food and the other eats for urinary tract food. So one has to get picked up and put in a room, and the other guy has to eat separately. They're okay with it with me, but I just need to know how to deal with it.
That's always a really tough situation. I think staying at home, I mean, ideal situation, if you could afford it and find the right person, would be to hire a pet sitter that's going to come stay in the house, you know, the whole time that you're gone, and keep up the routines. And you would have them come over and make visits before you leave so that they're gradually being introduced to the cats, and the cats learn to trust them. Again, a lot of that hand feeding of things, and have the pet sitter come over and feed them and be there while you're feeding them before you leave town, and then have somebody come stay. That's what we do when we have to leave Pico and we don't travel with them. And the reason for that is that they are highly territorial creatures. So taking them out of their home environment and putting them in another environment, no matter how wonderful we may think it is, just the fact that it's different is going to really stress them out. So I think that extra stress of an environmental change is going to be really hard on them. So it'd be probably better for them to stay home and have the caregiver come there.
I did actually, there's a local person that does, or a group that does what you do is cat behavior. And I actually hired someone about that. And we were trying to figure out how to desensitize them to have somebody come over. But because I don't have a friend that would come over every day, we even tried it for a month with a neighbor, having them just come over and sit and just ignore the cats and not scare them in any way. But I don't have very many visitors, so they're not used to that. And I have to sort of figure out how to deal with that, because it would cost me more than my trip to have somebody. What they would need is somebody over every day for probably 3 months. They're so scared, or Doug certainly is, but Mo is too. They need somebody every day. It would cost me more than I can afford. So I have to come up with something, because now Doug gets gabapentin when he's a nervous wreck. The vet even found he was so nervous going to the vet actually prescribed him gabapentin. So before he goes to the vet, he's given some tranquilizing, calming medication, and then he's still terrified, but it's not as bad. And if I have to give him a Silencia injection, he gets gabapentin to calm down because it doesn't bug him. So
and you might want to make sure that he's getting the gabapentin leading up to your trip, because he'll know as he starts to see you packing that things are different and not in routine, and during while you're gone, just to help take that edge off. It won't hurt him to be on it for that period of time.
So it might help to actually help him eat with a pet sitter around if he's a little bit buzzed on the gabapentin. And especially Mo, the diabetic guy, because if he doesn't eat, he can't get his injection. He's better than he was, but he has to eat.
And put, anything that they need to add to the food to make it palatable, because they have to eat. Like if it's tuna or pieces of deli turkey or whatever. I don't know if there's Lick and Lap in Canada. If there is, get it.
They do have squeezable treats. Mo can't have it because he's diabetic, but he does eat freeze-dried chicken.
Yeah.
And the deli turkey is a good idea. I never thought of, because I thought there'd be sort of additives in there that aren't healthy for cats, but if it's safe for them to eat, and he has to eat pure meat.
Yeah. Just get just regular deli turkey. Just make sure it's not smoked or, mesquite grilled or has a lot of, spices and things like that. If it's just regular deli turkey breast, it's perfectly fine for them.
Oh, that's good to know. So I guess I'm pretty much in the same situation. I can't really desensitize them before somebody comes. I'd have to hire a professional pet sitter. So
yeah, ideally would be to have somebody come again and desensitize them before the trip, have them coming over at meal times and feeding them so they get used to that.
Yeah, that's an idea. Maybe hand feed them or try to anyway. They won't eat if they're scared. The vet tries to give them treats and nobody's interested at all, no matter how good the treat is.
Yeah.
They're that scared.
So somebody's asked, do scared cats ever purr? Absolutely they do. In fact, sometimes they purr to calm themselves, because purring is a something they do to relieve stress for themselves. So if a cat is in a lot of pain, we see it a lot when they're in pain. We'll see it, when they're scared. Usually not, but sometimes. I have this strange reaction for this cat that's in a shelter I'm working with now. He is 10 months old, never been around people. Sadly, a man died, left his house to his son 3 years ago, and the son is gradually trapping the cats. Clearly, it was a hoarding situation, but these cats continue to breed in this home. So this little kitten's 10 months old, born in this house, never been around people, and he hides. He gets that hunkered down thing. But when I open the kennel door and look at him, he chatters like they do when they're watching birds. He's kind of like chatter at me, and that's the strangest reaction I've gotten from a scared cat that I've seen. It's very weird. So yeah, they can absolutely purr. And is there a difference to tell between a confident purr versus a scared purr? Yeah, you can usually tell. When they are purring because they're in pain or scared, it'll be more like a hyperventilation purr. It's faster and it's more start-stop than it is when they're in a contented purr. That's almost like a continual motor running, right? It's just purr. Whereas if they're scared, it's like purr, 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 purr. So it's a little more abrupt. Okay, Olivia asks, I have a litter, mom cat and 2 kittens. Mom's very fearful. We're working on it. Kittens are extremely social and adventurous, but are starting to observe. Yeah. That's a common thing, especially when we're fostering nursing moms and they're, feral moms or stray moms. Those kittens absolutely learn from not only one another, but other cats, and especially what mom does. So use some of these techniques with mom. If you can get in there where mom is with the extended scratcher and put the lick and lap on so that they see mom eating in front of you, and then gradually shorten that scratcher until you're able to pet her, then that'll be a good thing. Now, the good news is she learns from them too. So if they're really social and they're out trusting you and interacting with you, that's going to help. It's going to definitely help with her as well. Anybody else? And I see Olivia left before I answered that. Sorry, Olivia. Hopefully you'll tune back in. I did put the
She
link.
actually, so
She
that's
what?
perfect. She texted me and asked if I could listen for your answer. So I just was typing it up for her.
Okay, good. And reminder, it'll be recorded. She can also just fast forward to the end till she hears it. And I did put the link to that CD in the chat box. If you guys want to look at that, that's in there. Any other questions about your scared cat?
Molly, this is Sarah.
Thanks.
I had a question about the cats in a room. I saw the hiding, you said they needed a place to hide and some vertical space. I moved my 3 B-mod cats into a room a couple of weeks ago. And so, when I was working with them, I took their beds away, right? Their hidey beds and everything. So how much should I give them in a room? Because, they're still acclimated. So they are a little bit, fearful again.
No, good question. I removed, just like we removed in their kennels, all the places to hide where you can't see them. You want to remove that. So I remove all of those domed beds, that kind of stuff. If a cat will not come out and interact with you, and then it's going to feel trapped in that bed when you're trying to work with it. So give it a place to hide that is still accessible. So like we have these, like you have those small Karanda beds. We have these Karanda towers in the group rooms.
Yes, yes.
And they were getting under the towers and hiding. So now we lay our towers down on their side in the group rooms. So they can still, it creates like little squares that are open topped. And so they can still kind of hide, but you can look down and see the body language and work with them. So if you've got those Karanda towers, lay them over and that'll be enough. That's enough of a place to hide, but so that you can see what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
All right.
Good question. Yeah, because when I say give them places to hide, again, there's varying degrees of scaredy cats. Cats in a shelter are going to be a lot more stressed than cats in a home. So if you have a cat that's, that's afraid when company comes over, absolutely do not make it interact with company. Give it a place to hide, give it a room to go to. In a shelter setting, because we are purposefully interacting with them with specific techniques, we've got to be able to see them. And we also want them to feel in control. So if they're in a hide box like I showed, and I'm coming at them with the scratcher, then they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any choice to interact with us. So we want to make sure that they have that choice to participate or not.
Okay.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked that. Jerry says, where do we find the webinar after? On Cat Behavior Solutions website? No, on YouTube. If you go to the catbehaviorsolutions.org, there is a link to my YouTube channel, or you can go to YouTube and find us. It'll be Cat Behavior Solutions or Cat Talk Radio. And there I have playlists, and one of those playlists are webinars, and you'll find that there. In fact, the last webinar that I did with Dallas Pets Alive was on enrichment, which has some really great, I think it's a 48 checklist of things to do to make sure that your cat has enough environmental enrichment, which means ability to exhibit its normal natural species behaviors in your home. How do we simulate that in the home? And that goes a long way in making cats feel more confident and not scared. So check that out too while you're there. That's a good one, Jerry, to share with your adopters and fosters also.
Yeah.
Anybody else? That's it? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Kirsten, good to meet you. Give
Thank
Alan
you
my
too.
best.
Will do. This was amazing. One quick last question then. They've gone to hiding under the bed, and I put these things around to try and, like, they've got other places they can hide in the room. So I don't want them under the bed because, like you say, you don't see them, you don't know what's happening. I should discourage that. So when they come out to eat, I should close that off to stop them. It's not good to just let them be there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would block that off, totally block that off so that they can't go under the bed. Yeah. Give them places to get up high, right?
Yeah.
But not so high that you can't reach them with food.
Yeah.
Right?
The highest I've got so far is only about as high as I am, or a bit lower. I haven't got anything high, but I can see that light going high.
Yeah.
Maybe I can put something in. No, that's great. Thank you. This has been amazing. Really,
Good.
really helpful.
Good.
The timing was perfect.
Yeah, this was perfect. I'm glad you could join. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you. That's a fabulous webinar you just gave with great ideas. So I'm really glad I found you by accident on Facebook, and I'll follow your website.
Yes, and check out Cat Talk Radio. So if you go to my website, there's under the Cat Talk Radio tab, there's a categories tab because we have 240 podcasts. And so we're grouping them by topic. Some of them are duplicated in there that are cross topic, but if there's something in particular, like nutrition, although we did a great webinar on nutrition as well, check that out. There's tons of resources there, and that's what that's for. So I'm glad you joined us, and I'm glad you found me, and please share with everybody else because that's what we want, is everybody having all the good info.
Well, thanks very much. I'll look up your enrichment one too. That sounds like a good idea for scared cats.
Yes, it is. It is. And the cats love it. Cats love it. And your guys are so cute together that it's just adorable.
They're madly in love with each other, and they were not brothers. Their former owner had 3 cats. She got sick. And Doug, the young fella, just fell in love with Mo, and Mo's his support animal. Mo's a bit braver, but Doug is like a total washing machine. Mo gives him massages and Doug washes him, and he's just lovable. He is feeling a lot better though. After a year, he was a super nervous wreck, but he is starting to feel better. So I think we're on the right track. Just want to take care of them properly. I avoid traveling. I'd rather be with my guys, but when I have to go, at least now I have some ideas. And thank you for the tips.
My husband's always wanting to go on big old long trips, and I'm like, I'm not leaving Pico, and if I can't take him, and if we're not gone for more than 3 days, I just I don't like doing that for those reasons. And when we do, we have people come. It's a little easier. He's healthy and young and very confident and bold, so it's not very traumatic for him to have people come. So, but yeah, I feel your pain there. Yeah. And Veronica, thanks for joining us from Argentina. That's awesome. That's great. Thanks for joining. You guys are all over the world tonight, from Canada to Australia to Argentina. This is great. Super. All right. Well, everybody, have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for joining. Again, the recording of today's webinar will be on the YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review any of it, it will be there for you. And we'll hopefully look
Thank you,
forward
Molly.
to seeing you next time. Okay.
Thank you, Molly.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.